What is up, my nerds? Welcome back to another episode. Look who's back. Zack is back. Hey, what's up, man?
Thank you.
So, man, there's a lot of stuff going on in the nerdy realm. There's a lot of stuff going on.
A lot of good nerdy content out there, or coming soon.
Definitely coming soon. I know we've talked through text and stuff like that. You haven't seen the Mario movie yet, but that's okay. I've seen it, and I at least won't. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I can at least tell you it is a must-see.
Yeah, it seems like its audience score seems to be through the roof in the 90s. I mean, using Rotten Tomato is always a double-edged sword, so be careful with that. But the audience score on Rotten Tomato is high, the critic review is low. And I think honestly, I think it's because critics don't know how to appreciate a movie outside of, like, does it meet these artistic boxes?
Yeah. I said that on a previous podcast.
Did you?
Episode where I was like, I feel like critics are so disconnected from what we really like that they're like, oh, I didn't understand the concept. It didn't make sense to me. I'm like, it's a cartoon.
It was too basic. It was too paint by numbers. Which, like, don't get me wrong. If you want to put that in as part of your critique, that's fine. If you want to say, I gave it an 85 because it was just a little simple for me. It was a little too easy for me. It was a little too paint by numbers for me. Cliche. But, like, again, I haven't seen it yet, but, like, it feels like to me if these movies, if these Marvel movies, if these kids movies can cross $1 billion and critics can be like, it's fine, then I don't think you're really listening. As a critic, you're supposed to critique movies for the people who are going to go see them. And if they're making billions of dollars and you're still saying, nah, they're fine, they're okay. I'm not saying that you can't say, well, critically and artistically, they could have been better. There's not a lot of character development. There's not a lot of XYZ. But it was a fun movie. It was a good escapism. If you were this, and another thing, because you were talking about the Mario movie. I've seen the Dungeons and Dragons movies, which you haven't seen yet. I just saw it like a week ago, and again, I loved it. I think it was great. I don't know what the critic score on it is, but I assume it's fine because, again, there wasn't like a ton of great character development or anything like that. It was just a fun adventure movie. You know what it reminded me of? It gave me, like, the Dungeons and Dragons vibe of the Mummy. So, like, it has nothing to do with the Mummy. It's not like the Mummy, but you know how the Mummy is just like good old school cinema fun. It's like that. There's CGI in it, but it's not CGI heavy. It feels like they made an effort to be like, let's only use CGI if we can't get a good practical effect going. It's just fun, and that's where I think critics are missing out on things because, yes, it's not a Scorsese film where but also I'm not going into the Super Mario Brothers movie being like, I wonder if Mario will betray the kingdom because in his own interest,
That's exactly what I was saying. I was like, critics sitting in the chairs like, oh, plot twist, M. Night Shyamalan, Bowser's the good guy of the whole thing, and Mario's actually manipulating everyone. Like,
turns out that Mario's actually the villain that we were expecting. So if you turn, you can see that the Mario's internal struggle is really what led him to betray the Mushroom Kid. Fuck off! It's a kids movie. Like,
it's a kids movie.
It's a kids movie, and I'm an adult who can enjoy it, and that's all that matters.
I mean, from what I was reading, it was like it's a wholesome family movie to take your kids to go watch, and if you're a fan of the Nintendo world as an adult or child, you can go watch it and enjoy it. There were so many Easter eggs, man. There were so many little Easter eggs that you would
those are the
love
best
and
when
enjoy.
you catch them.
Like, God. So, like, we have homework. So I'm gonna go watch the Dungeons and Dragons movie. And then you can go watch the Mario movie, and then we'll talk about that, because you'll love it, dude.
I have more homework for you, actually. I'm pulling up the name on my phone right now.
Okay.
I have no... why is my Wi-Fi not
on? In school, I never did my homework on time. I always did it the day before. So
that's fine. Okay, there's a movie that's been on my to-watch list for, I want to say, a minimum of a year or two at this point. In fact, when did it come out? 2020? That sounds about right. Yeah. It's on Hulu. It's a Hulu movie called Palm Springs. It's got Andy Samberg, And Christine, I always mess up her last name. Christine Mulatto. She's the mom from How I Met Your Mother.
Okay, got it.
It is. I'm gonna give you the short version, the like nutshelliest version that you would get on the trailer, which is that like it's Andy Samberg, and he is trapped in a time loop, Groundhog's Day style. And then he meets her, and then through a series of events, she also gets trapped in this time loop with him. So they are both conscious of what's happening around them, but everything else just repeats on end. So like,
got it.
All you need to know is it is not what you're expecting.
Okay.
I don't want to reveal more than that. I don't want to be like, I don't want to give
Palm
details.
Spring.
It is a fan fucking tastic movie. It's so good, and it's not what you expect, and then it knocks you off guard of what to expect, and then it brings you into a whole new level. So it's like something happens and you're like, whoa, this is not what I was expecting. But then it starts delivering beats that cinema movies, you know, those cinema movies, those rather than just like a movie. It's like, you know, they give you a message, they tell you a story, they make you feel things, they make you think about things. Like, it's that kind of movie. But then something will happen and you'll be like, oh, that's not what I was expecting. And it's like dramatically. I would say I think it was when I paused it, because I had to pause it because of how dramatically the tone shifted. I want to say like 15 minutes into the movie. I think it was like 13 minutes specifically, but around the 15-minute mark, you're going to be like, oh, this is not what I was expecting. You're going to love it. It's great. Brent and I went back and watched it over the weekend because I was feeling very movie, and I was like, you know what, this has been on my list for a while and it sounds great. Let's go back and watch it. And we watched it. And it's Andy Samberg being, he's a very good actor, for the record, but he's also Andy Samberg, so he's hilarious. So what'll happen is like he'll be delivering a message, and then it's Andy Samberg and he's hilarious, and you start laughing, and then he starts giving like a monologue, and you're like, oh, he's actually really good as an actor too. It's just really good, and you should really watch it. And everyone who's listening or watching this podcast, go watch it. It's on Hulu. It's free. I think it's like 2 hours long, and it's like good old school film that you would have gotten that would have landed in that like mid-tier range in cinema, but because everything's going to streaming, it's just on streaming for free, and it's amazing, and you should go watch it, because movies like this that make you laugh, they make you cry, they make you think, they make you feel things. Like, I don't know about you, but especially when it comes to movies that like deal with infinity or being trapped like in a time loop or in a universe or something where it's like you just have to make the best of it, because I'll never know what it feels like to be trapped in a time loop, you know what I mean? But like they do a really good job of being like, yeah, he's been here for a long time. So it's just really interesting. I don't want to throw any other spoilers out there other than that. That's not even a spoiler, but just like I don't want to describe it as anything more than that, because it doesn't need my help. It really doesn't.
Well, just for you, I'll probably watch it tonight with the wife.
Nice.
Yeah,
she'll like it too.
Okay, good. Yeah, she's very picky though, but I end up just suggesting anything, and then she ends up watching it and loving it. So you know, Nicole and I get this song and dance, dude. We have this song and dance when it comes to if you all never heard my wife's name is Nicole. So we have this. Yeah, we'll sit down with our dinner, and then we'll watch TV. But then she's like, "All right, what do you want to watch?" And then with every platform, there's like tons of things, and I'm like, oh, this movie's good, this movie's good, this movie. I'll give her like 5 options, and she's like, I don't know. And then we surf for like at least 10 minutes, and I'm like, okay,
you're lucky if you only get 10 minutes.
Well, I get frustrated. I'm not gonna lie, I get really frustrated, and I'm like, I really just want to eat my dinner before it gets cold, and dude, let's just pick something.
Okay, we've never discussed this. We've been friends for what, 10 years now?
Yeah.
Are you, because we both have very heavy ADD. I can't eat my food if I'm not watching something.
Yeah, I kind of like just make it. Well, I kind of make it a goal of mine. Actually, I'm not gonna like eat it and like surf at the same time, because it's not enjoyable for me.
Yeah, because then you're trying to find something while you're eating, and you're not making mental note of the eating. Whereas if you're just like, if I'm out at a restaurant, obviously you're talking with people. You're like, but if I'm just like at my house, I have to have like a YouTube on, or or like if I can find like a Young Justice, or if we can like start a movie, that way I can be eating, and by the time I'm done, the opening scenes are usually done, and then I can just like sit back and watch the movie.
Not to offend anyone, but if you're sitting down at a table or whatever, eating in silence and not having anything, you might be a psychopath. I'm just saying.
Brit and I just talked about this because the women she works with tend to be a little bit older. They tend to be in their like 50s or so, and we were just talking about it this weekend about how like she was like she was talking to the woman she works with who's older and has a daughter who's around Bryn's age, and she was like, my daughter, she has a like a dining room table. She's pushed it against the wall, and she just like keeps stuff on it. And I was like, you just described my house. Like our dining room table, you've seen it, is in the like by our kitchen, but it's pushed off to the side. We have a spare microwave because I keep meaning to replace the main microwave we have, and then just like a bunch of like papers and stuff are on it, like mail that we don't have, and like dog food and stuff like that, because our dog food crates are under that table because we never use it. And I'm like, why do we even have this table? If you sit at a dining room table and just like sit and talk to each other, and that's your jam, good for you. I'm glad that you can do that. It makes my brain itch from the inside.
Or like it's even weirder though. Like say you like lived alone, or if you're eating a meal alone, if you're sitting at your table and not doing anything, like you're not even reading a book or reading into paper.
Well,
you're just
your
sitting there in
hands get
silence.
like, even if you're like, either you're using fork and knife or whatever you're using, and you can't like hold a book or your phone or whatever.
Yeah.
Or you have like messy food that you're grabbing with your hand, and I don't want to get like crumbs and sauce on my book or on my phone. So that's where like YouTube, either like setting up my phone and just kind of watching the tubes, or putting a movie on, putting a TV show on. But like, it's to the point that Bryn knows. She'll be like, okay, do you want to find something while we eat? And I'm like, yes, please. I've never used a dining room table and been like, this was a fun experience, unless I'm using it for board games.
The only time I would say Nicole and I use the table in our dining room is for like guests. Like we have guests over, that's when we eat there. We have like a little bar. You've seen the house. We have a little bar that cuts off the dining room and the kitchen. We'll eat there, but I'll have my iPad set up to like watch something. Yeah. Or we'll just eat on our couch. Yeah. And watch something. Like I have to be doing something. Like I can't just eat.
90% of the guests that come into my house, and like Bryn and I have talked about this too before, with like we don't have kids, and so we have like rooms that we're not using, and we had them, one of them as a guest room for forever, and I was like, I think people stay in this guest room maybe 3 nights a year. The ratio and return on investment is not good enough to not just turn this room into something fun and tell people, like, for the 3 days that they'd be staying here, hey, you got to grab a hotel because we just don't have a spot for you. Or we have a pull-out couch as our main, like, we have like a big U couch has like a pull-out. So if you want to stay with us, you can stay on the pull-out. But like that room shouldn't just go to waste 362 days a year because somebody might be staying at it. It's the same thing. It's like, I just don't need it. And so like 90% of the guests that come into my house are millennials or below, and they don't want to sit at a table and eat either. They want to be sitting on my couch eating pizza or whatever we're eating with we have tables, it's like we have a table by the couch and everything that people can lean forward and eat on if they want to. But most of the time when people are over my house, it's because we've like ordered pizza, we're having a board game night, so everybody gets like Taco Bell or whatever, or like we make food like buffalo dip and we just kind of sit it on the table and then people like scoop. Like most scenarios don't require a table to sit at. In fact, I don't think people want it. At least I don't.
I think it's my house. I think it's coming to the wayside these days.
My house, my rules.
Yeah. Talking about some nostalgia stuff though. Did you see that the Switch pulled out something on their 64 emulator?
The Pokemon Stadium?
Yes, dude. Yeah. I've been waiting for that. Okay, look, you had your Mario 64s. Great. I love Mario 64. Or you had some other things, that GoldenEye and stuff like that. But I've been itching. I was like, when are they bringing Stadium, dude? And then I looked it up on Google, and it was like a week out. I was like, I was shocked. I was like, oh my God, dude.
It's coming. The fun thing about Stadium, this is, I think, I don't know officially, but I've heard this a bunch, so let's just take it as truth because the internet would never lie to me. is that the reason Stadium was so good and that their battle animations are so good is because they didn't know it was going to be a Pokemon game. They were just told to design a game based on like the moves and everything, and then they would give them the monsters to like fill in the spots.
Oh,
so they designed a lot of it as if it were just like a Nintendo Monster Stadium game. And then they put in the Pokemon after the fact. So
really,
the reason that even though it's got great battle animations, we didn't get really any battle animation. In fact, some of the battle animations on Stadium are still better than the animations we got in this most recent iteration of the game, where like you walk around the outer world and just like run into Pokemon and start a fight with them. They're good, but there are still animations that make more sense, like when you do a flamethrower, he like Charizard will like throw his head forward and be like "Rah!" and like shoot the fire out. Whereas now in the Pokemon games, it'll be like just like out of near the Pokemon, because it's they don't want to design specifically 1,000 Pokemon or however many they're running with in each game now, doing each animation. Whereas back with the OG 150, they just made 150 battle animations. It was It was really cool,
dude.
So.
I played it. Yesterday because I finally brought my Switch down in the studio and stuff like that, and I was playing it, and I was like, God, I missed this thing so bad. I was like, I missed it. It holds up to this day, dude. It really does. It is the OG Pokemon game that I think other games need to hold up to. Like it is up there. It's that tier.
You know what else ranks up there, and I can't complain anymore, but Pokemon Snap. Pokemon Snap holds up. There are like good secrets in that game where like if you like I think everyone knows the one where it's like you've got like a Charmeleon walking around the lava in like the first level, and if you hit it with an apple, because you can throw apples to get it to like, oh, I'm gonna eat food, but if you hit it, it like genuinely, you just chucked an apple at a Pokemon. And if you hit the Charmeleon with the apple as you're walking, it like knocks them into a pool of lava, and then it comes out as a Charizard. Like that, it like evolves that way. It's really cool. That the N64 game had a lot of secrets, but they weren't, same like with Pokemon Stadium, they weren't like 100% convinced it would be a moneymaker. So of the original 150, I think it had like 61 Pokemon, which is like fine. But like considering it's 150, it's like you could have put them all in there. But then they remade Pokemon Snap recently, and it was, in my opinion, just as good as the original, and they put a lot more Pokemon in it because at this point it's like Gen 7 or 8 when it came out. So it's worth checking out. There's a lot of good secrets. The only problem I have with the new one is that there might be too many secrets, because sometimes it'll be like super specific to like, you have to boink this guy with an apple, and then later you have to lay down this thing, and then later you have to like do music, and then if you do all three of those, then like a thing emerges, which like, I'm complaining about it, and as I'm complaining about it, I'm like, that's kind of what you asked for, but just like bigger. You got to go old school with it, where you got to go online and you got to figure out like how to unlock all the things. So, and none of it is DLC. So, you know what? I'm going to say in real time, I need to shut the fuck up.
You remember how we were talking about people complaining about stuff?
I was like talking about it. I'm like, why are you bitching? That sounds awesome.
Okay, I'll talk about this, and then we'll hop back to the original. What my original idea was about Mario was. I went stupid. I don't know why I killed that guy. Like my brain literally just killed that thing. Oh my god!
I love
dude.
that people have started stealing. Like that is the thing I put out there, which is that like I've killed that last guy. I don't know if we've ever talked about it on the podcast before, but like okay, so like real talk. Me and my wife we just have really bad ADD. Shane does too. And so, like, sometimes you're just, like, mid-thought, and you just lose it, and it's just gone forever. And so, me and my wife were, like, talking about it, and I was like, oh, yeah, you know what? That was an entirely different version of me. That was a totally different guy. In fact, that guy's gone. He's dead. I killed that last guy. And so, I killed that last guy just became a phrase in our household for when you, like, forget a thought mid-thought, or if you get, like, if you're talking and someone interrupts you real quick, and you're like, okay, and they're like, okay, what were you saying? And you're like, oh no. So, but now we've started doing it where sometimes we'll remember like 10 minutes later, and we'll be like, we found a body.
That's pretty funny. Well, so what I was going to say about Mario is that So on a previous episode, we talked about how when Mario was first coming out, we're like, I could see if it's a big hit that they could branch out and create a Nintendo EU type thing.
A
Nintendo universe.
Smashverse, a Super Smash Bros. Universe.
And it seems like in rumors that with Mario being a hit, that they're already in works to greenlight a Mario 2 movie.
Makes sense.
But also, and it also seems like they're going to greenlight a Zelda and maybe a Metroid movie.
Yeah, I heard the rumblings about Zelda and the Metroid too. I think I had heard about.
Yeah, so I want to say that if it does, it's going to happen. I'm going to put a stamp on it right now. It is going to happen, and you heard it here. Give it credit that you heard it here that they're doing it before it was even thought about. Yeah, yeah, we said it. So that's all.
Not to mention, we had called this that if they wanted to, they already have Sonic out in the movie verse out there somewhere, and his whole power is like universe hopping. He takes the rings and he's able to hop to a different universe. How interesting would it be if Sonic was kind of the multiversal connector? Plus, I haven't seen the Mario movie, but it sounds like Mario also got teleported to like the
So
they
I didn't want to spoil that, but it's not really a spoiler. But yeah,
I mean, it's in the first trailers that he's like
they kind of show a teleport-y type of aspect.
Is it the pipe? Is it that like green pipe? It's the teleporter.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Again, I haven't seen it. I haven't heard anything about it. But like, if I'm writing a movie and I need
it's like the first scene, you get to see like one pipe, right? Obviously, takes him to the Mushroom Kingdom, but he gets to see like multiple different things at the same time. So
all the different Mario worlds.
Yes. So
probably again, I haven't seen it.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm not going to say anything, so I don't want to be a spoiler. Is it spoiler? Spoiler eater. I don't know.
Spoiler.
Spoiler. Yeah.
Spoiler.
You've been talking about how you've been watching a lot of Injustice lately.
Young Justice.
Sorry.
Yeah. So everyone has always told me that Young Justice is absolutely phenomenal series and kind of like a benchmark of like what a good animated hero show can be. Not that Teen Titans is bad. We were talking about this before we got on the podcast. Not that Teen Titans is bad. Teen Titans is great. But I think Teen Titans is... I think Teen Titans didn't treat kids like adults in a kid show. And I feel like Young Justice doesn't treat young adults as children in a children's show. Does that make sense? Like Young Justice...
Say that one more time.
So, how can I phrase this well? So, Young Justice is their target audience seems to be 18 to 35-year-old males, and it doesn't talk down to you. It's even though comics are considered like a younger thing, it doesn't, and it is a show about 15 to 18-year-old kids. It doesn't portray them as children. It portrays them as young adults. That's why it's Young Justice, not like kids justice.
Exactly.
And I got through season 1. Whereas Teen Titans is a show that is designed for kids, I would say ages 12 to 18, but they also still don't talk down to those kids. They treat them as the audience that will eventually transition into the Young Justice audience. And so even though they are sillier, especially with Teen Titans Go, even though they are sillier, they are goofier, they still make adult points, especially in the original Teen Titans. They do keep things very real. Like they don't sugarcoat it either. They're not out there like, cutting people's throats on camera and stuff like that. It's a cartoon still, but like that was a kids show with adult themes, and Young Justice is a young adult show with young adult and adult themes. The first season, I've only watched the first season, and then I watched the first episode of season 2. I know that Young Justice was canceled at like one point, wasn't it? Was it after the first season?
It was canceled after season 2.
It's a bold choice. So spoilers for this is not like a major spoiler, but the transition from season 1 to season 2 has like a 5-year time gap, and I was like, whoa, what just happened? Because we missed a lot.
I know when I was watching it, it was actually, I think you're right. The second season did get it was just season 1. And it took so long for season 2 to come out. That's why I think they did the time gap.
I was wondering that, because I was like, I know that they had either been canceled or postponed for so long that I think and this is all speculation based on the fact that I know that it was like, fans were very mad when it was canceled because it's such a good show, and like the reason it was canceled was basically like, it wasn't selling toys, which is a shitty reason to cancel something. I understand money, blah, 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 but with like streaming these days, it shouldn't be as big a deal. Anyway, I knew that there was some like controversy over like was it canceled and it was brought back, and I think that it was. So I was thinking to myself, maybe they canceled it or they did this really long pause between season 1 and season 2, which is why they would do it, because it's like, hey, we missed that time too. You know what I mean? Like, we're gonna catch up with these people later because we're catching up with them literally 5 years later. So
yeah.
It's just
So have you started season 2 yet?
I started the first episode.
Okay. So you got to see. So you definitely okay.
I got to see who you were thinking I was going to see. Yes.
Yeah. So who in season? Let's just start season 1. Who's your favorite character of season 1?
Honestly, that's tough because I lean towards Robin. So I'm going to have a different... I lean towards Robin because I like Robin a lot. Who doesn't like Batman? And I like that he, despite the fact that he's not a great leader because of it, but the fact that he just like disappears and does... I love that he does that little like creepy laugh that he does when he disappears.
Dude.
Because it's such a good
Robin.
Batman tool, which is like you use what you can to increase the fear of your opponent or enemies.
So a lot of people got pissed at Robin. Like, I don't understand why he like disappears. But the thing of it is, you got to think about they were a dynamic duo. Batman was able to do his thing, and Batman trusted Robin to do his thing. So they never really needed each other, but they also needed each other. You know what I'm saying?
The thing is, they needed each other, but they didn't need to communicate what needed to be done. In fact, Robin makes a point of saying it that. Several times actually, where he says, "With Batman, our roles are just defined. We don't." Or maybe this is what Aqualad had said to him. But look, with Batman, the roles are defined. Bruce has a standard. In fact, they say it in like one of the first episodes. He says when they're like stuck in the pods or whatever, and he was like, "Batman would have killed me for taking so long to get out of this," because like Batman just has this standard for Robin of like, I've raised you, you know what to do, you know the role. Like, Robin knows what Batman will be doing. I mean, they just don't have to communicate it, or if they do, it's very brief. Batman has his major role, and Robin has his support role. And then he tried to come into this team being like, I was trained by Batman. Like, and then he wanted to be the leader, but also wanted to just fall into that secondary role of support role. And not that he was like secondary or support, but like that's what Robin and these sidekicks, that's the whole point, is like emerging them out of this sidekick role and into like a hero role.
Right.
And so it's great that like his instincts, his battle instincts are, when something happens, you don't stop, you don't think, you just act. You go and you trust that the other person is going to go do that. Whereas the other heroes, the other young heroes, didn't necessarily have that dynamic with Robin, and even though they are heroes in their own right, they don't have a team strategy for who goes where and what. And while I do think that he has the intelligence to run the team in season 1, it was right for him to not. In fact, I really like they do occasionally, they'll do like therapy after their sessions, especially if like something happens. And I watched the episode. This might be spoilery, but also I'm like 9 years late to the show or something.
It's been out for a while.
It's been out for a while.
So don't feel bad. Yeah.
So there's an episode where like they go through and like everything that can go wrong will go wrong. I won't go much more into that because the episode actually has some fun twists and turns, and I don't want to ruin the episode for anyone who hasn't seen it. But basically, it's if everything could go wrong, it's going to go wrong in this episode. Then afterwards, they go through some like therapy. And I really appreciated that Robin was like, they were like, how do you feel? And he was like, I realized that I don't want to be Batman. I don't. There's something in him that is able to give 100% of his entire life. Every part of his being can go into being Batman, and I don't want that. And the fact that they said that is such a big deal for me as like a fan of the series, because Robin, especially Dick Grayson, is more lighthearted. He's not not Batman, and but he's got his skills, but that doesn't make him Batman. And I think that was a really important distinction that like a lot of places don't necessarily nail when they portray Robin.
Yeah, and I would say even the new animated movies with like the Teen Titans or whatever kind of hit on that as well, where. Okay, so in the original Teen Titans, they speculate. Obviously, it's Dick Grayson, but they never say his real name, and is always laid hints and little cameos or like little Easter eggs that he's separated from Bruce for now, and he always kind of had this little anger, I guess, towards him because he's a struggling kid who
this
dealt with
resentment
trauma.
of almost kind of trying to prove that he is as good as Batman.
Yeah, exactly. So in the new Teen Titans movies, and it kind of leads in. To honestly what they're talking about Injustice, he becomes Nightwing, and then he overall grows because he kind of finds who he wants to be. He knows he's just as good as Batman, but he knows he's not Batman. He knows how he wants the hero. He also takes time for his social life. Him and Corey, Starfire, have a relationship, and they actually spend time together or try to spend time together, and try to overall have a relationship. Whereas Bruce Wayne is Batman. He is There is no Bruce. Bruce Wayne is his alter ego.
Yeah, he always says I think it was in one of my favorite lines from Batman Beyond is where they kidnap Bruce Wayne. And they're trying to make him feel like he's crazy. And so, they have, a thing that was implanted or, near him or whatever, where basically it would just, it would talk in his own voice at him. And it would be like, Bruce, you need to blah, 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 Bruce, as if his conscious is, talking to him. And then after he's rescued, Terry McGinnis, who's Batman at this point, he's like, how did you know that you weren't going crazy? And he goes, the voice called me Bruce. And he was like... he said the voice in my head was calling me Bruce, and he goes, well, what do you call yourself in your head? And he just turns to him and stares at him, and he goes, oh, you would call yourself that in your head. Bruce Wayne is his mask. That's what's the interesting dynamic between Superman and Batman that is so great, is that Superman is super all the time. Technically Clark Kent is his alter ego. But it's the same thing with Bruce Wayne, but in a different way. So Bruce is a guy who he says that Bruce Wayne died that night with my parents, and Batman was born from that day forward. Everything else is just me wearing a Bruce Wayne mask. Whereas with Superman, he was born Clark Kent, and then found out that he was Superman. And so it's this dynamic of I have to keep my secret identity safe for those around me, whereas Bruce is just that guy's dead.
yeah, exactly. And so what's cool about jump cut for Injustice, as you know, it's 5 years later. They're all older now, and Robin becomes Nightwing, and he's not really leading. I think from what I remember, he's he's kind of going back and forth where he's not really. He kind of steps in a little bit for the Injustice team. I mean, Young Justice team. Yeah, I keep saying Injustice like it's fucking the side story,
which is another story in the Justice League universe.
Young Justice, where Tim Drake is Robin now, and he's trying to lead the team. And he does. When
the new Robin showed up in episode 2, I was like, he either got a haircut or that is a different Robin. And then Nightwing shows up, and I was like, that is a different Robin.
That is a different Robin, yeah.
And it's really interesting because again, I'm only one episode in. But I think the thing that bugs me is that there was a lot of plot points that were laid out that they might circle back to. They might do some flashbacks and stuff like that. Again, I haven't gotten there yet, but there's a whole thing about Connor Kent. And Superman needing to kind of take over that role as teacher to him. It doesn't even have to be father necessarily. He just has to teach him how to be a Kryptonian or half Kryptonian. And they just they didn't touch it because again it got missed. The same thing with they just a little baby Easter egg that says and maybe this wasn't a tease for the future, but they said something about Robin, and they said Batman won't even let him tell us his real name. And I was really hoping that at some point throughout the season he would be it's Dick. Dick Grayson.
Yeah.
And
I can't remember what I think they do. Okay, from what I remember, because I haven't seen the show in a minute. From what I remember, they do kind of like do some backs, like flashbacks. Mm-hmm. So
I figure they probably would, just to kind of like fill in a few of those holes before they move forward. But they also realize that with a time skip, you have to move things forward. It sucks because like that show could have been 5 more seasons where, you know, like they develop the Young Justice League and like they fill in a bunch of the characters and then you get more characters and then, you know, there was just so many more stories to be told. But I get it. That's why people are frustrated, and that's why I never touched Young Justice until now, is because it was like, it's great, it's wonderful, but it's short because there's not enough love on it.
I'd say the one thing that threw me off, though, with the show, and I still sometimes get confused, is the whole Speedy debacle.
Oh, yeah. And I am forgiving of that because that's Crispin Freeman, who voices Speedy and a few of the other characters, like the Guardian, I think, is his uncle, and then a bunch of the side characters. But, like, yeah, the big thing is that, like, Red Arrow is Crispin Freeman, who is a coach of mine. I've coached with him before. I've taken a bunch of his classes, and so I have a soft spot for his character, even when it's like weird stuff is happening with it. I'm like, yeah, but that's Crispin.
Yeah, it threw me off. Like I love the show. I love the show, and I really, and I'm not even going to give it the writer's fault. It's the overall network's fault. But like, oh, you have one season. Oh, we're just going to cancel it. And then the writer's like, well, we had a whole thing what we were going to do with like what was going to go on, and they probably just got thrown off. Where it's hard to kind of follow, like you're saying, with the time skip and everything. It's just hard to follow a little bit and pick up pieces or like trying to imagine what the pieces are.
The most jarring thing was that the way that season 1 ended, and again, I'm going to try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible, but the way it ended, to have a 4 or 5 year time skip after that like huge reveal, it was like, why? There's so many questions I have that need to be answered within the next week or two of what's happening. Like, it feels weird to just be like, bombshell drop 4 years later.
Yeah. I mean, I love Robin. I do, as you know, because Dick Grayson's my favorite Robin because of what he becomes in the Nightwing. But I have to say, one of my favorite characters is definitely Wally.
I love Kid Flash. Okay, so as a voiceover, I have said repeatedly that I would love to be the Flash because I think I have the right. When I do like my young hero voice, I think it pitches up to be similar to. I think it could either be, in my humble opinion, I could either do a good Robin or a good Kid Flash, and I think Kid Flash would just be fun to do because he's just got most of the time like fun, upbeat, quick energy, and I would love to do a Kid Flash. So I love Flash. He's one of my favorite heroes, if not my favorite hero. I haven't sat down. We should really sit down and do like a top 10 heroes list across any universe. We'll do that in a future episode for you guys. But Flash is one of my favorites. So obviously Kid Flash, and in Justice League, Flash was Wally West. So it's really interesting that they backed that down.
It threw me off though. When they did that.
But they made a point to say Barry in one of the like training and like one of the earlier episodes. They're like, "Hey Barry, hey Wally." They're like at the West household, so they made sure to make a point of it to be like, this version of Big Flash is Barry Allen.
Okay, I might have overlooked that and I probably forgot because
it is weird because in Justice League, it's Wally West, and then in Young Justice, which theoretically is the same unit. Like, is this the same as the Justice League Unlimited group? But I mean, to be fair, they have multiple Green Lanterns in there. They have the whole. They had Jay Garrick as one of the speedsters in the when they were having speedster dinner. The Bat family seems to grow throughout the entire thing. So they do one of the things I really like about it is that with animation, you don't have to worry about properties. You don't have to worry about pulling back on it. Like the thing starts off with Mr. Freeze and Robin and they just don't. It's the whole universe. You don't have to worry about, like, with the movies. I love movies. I love the MCU. I like the DCEU. I have a lot of hope for the DCU when it's made. But you're not going to get it all the weird stuff up front because it's just too much for a movie. It's just too much for casual fans, even if there are a lot of not adult fans, but like committed fans in the audience. Whereas, like, we started with Young Justice, and it was just immediately, like, weird stuff everywhere, which is what comics are. Not bad weird stuff, but, like, yeah, it's weird. There's a guy with an ice gun who's being like, my family is not stuck in this problem. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's weird. There's, like, 3 Green Lanterns, and you're like, why are there 3 Green Lanterns? And they're like, because there are. Move on. And you're like, okay.
Okay, yeah. Well, the important ones are Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, so that's all you really need to remember. There's 2 Green Lanterns.
There's 2 Green Lanterns that are, like... To be fair, we didn't really, even in season 1, get a lot of Green Lanterns. They're just in the shot from time to time. And then at one point they're doing, like, a league voting to see if who qualifies to be the next heroes of the Justice League. Like, there are heroes out there and they apply to be a member of the Justice League, and then they sit down and they vote on it. So at one point the Hal and John are, like, in this voting session, and they were like, well, actually, there's now a 3rd Green Lantern, and they both were like, no.
Yeah, it's funny. But yeah, I love Wally, man. He makes light of everything. He's so fun. He brings that comedic relief and everything. Because
the only thing I want them to do, and they were getting there, is that he was, like, a bit of a womanizer, which is kind of played out. And I get it. Teenage boys are... we can say whatever we want on this podcast, right? They're horny little fuckers all the time. Like, they just want to.
It's generally true.
Anything. Yeah. So, like, I'm not saying that, like, he crosses any boundaries or anything like that. Like, he's very respectful and everything. Well, not very respectful, but he doesn't do anything inappropriate other than just kind of, like, hit on the girls a lot.
The thing of it is, in the show, at least they could say the women empowerment is in there, where you know, you got Miss Martian, who's very strong, independent, and then you got Artemis, who's definitely very strong and could whoop ass in that show. So
and then they keep it. They add Zatanna. Zatanna is like the dad.
Zatanna.
They could have separated those a little bit better.
Yeah, I know. Zatara is her dad, and Zatanna is, which is kind of like a love interest of Robin, but really not. They grow up together. So.
They date, you know. Yeah, they dabble. But yeah, again, that's why I'm excited to get. I think there's 3 seasons now, right? Because I just got to season 2. Have they? And the thing is, I think people were hoping it would keep going after that, and HBO started, like, dismantling their animation stuff, and it was like, probably not going to see another season of this.
Yeah, season 3 is because it just. I think when HBO Max when the app was coming out, like when they were starting to make the platform HBO Max, that's when they had, like, oh, hey, one of the new things is that we have Injustice. I mean, God, he's saying Young Justice.
We can't edit that out, Shane. We're just gonna have to leave it in.
Young Justice season 3, and I'm like, oh shit,
shit, yeah. And then they were like, now they're just going by Max. Have you heard this? They're dropping the HBO Max because they feel it's elitist, and so, like, with Paramount Plus and stuff like that, since they're merging a lot of their stuff, it's just called Max.
Oh,
speaking of, by the way, let's this is a smooth transition. Let's go. Speaking of HBO, not HBO Max, a lot of people on the internet are not thrilled about this. I don't care. They have announced a revival of the Harry Potter series, where each season will be a book. So season 1 will be book 1, etc., etc. That is exactly what I've been asking for years. In fact, I've done it at least once on this podcast, where I've mentioned that they should go book for book in a streaming series so that they can do it. And I'm calling my shot. Since this is an episode we should just title this episode. We're calling our shot, because we did it with the Mario universe, and we've done it with me calling the best method is to do a streaming series where it's 8 years long
Yeah.
So I'm going to call my shot. Here's what's going to happen, because a lot of Harry Potter fans are being like, I would have preferred a Founders series, which is like about Godric Gryffindor, Salazar Slytherin, Helga Hufflepuff, and Rowena Ravenclaw. There are people who wanted to see a Marauders series, which would cover like, James and Sirius and Wormtail and Lupin and all of them. Here's what's going to happen. I'm just going to call this now, because I think that HBO is trying very, very hard to compete with Disney, because Disney is like, we have the MCU, we have Star Wars, and there's like a couple other, they have traditional Disney projects, and then they have like, other stuff that they do. But those are like their franchise.
And not to stop you, but when we're done talking about this, there's actually a funny and interesting thing I heard about Batman. But continue what you're saying.
Okay. So I think that they are trying to compete with Disney by doing the same thing. So they're rebooting the DCU to make it their own, like, this is like Disney's version. We're going to have movies, but then we're going to have shows. We're going to have animated projects. They're all going to tie together. And we have some other ones like The Batman and Shazam and everything. The Joker movie, like, those are all going to be Elseworlds. But they own the DC universe. That is they're competing with.
I love competition.
The MCU. It just makes competition is great for everybody.
Yeah.
I think that so they have Game of Thrones. House of the Dragon was a big success, but I think that they knew that they were like, we were really banking on Game of Thrones being like a long-term series, and it ended in a bad enough way that like we've lost some of that audience. I think that Harry Potter is that IP that is like, cool. You have Star Wars, we have Harry Potter. So I think they're going to redo the Harry Potter series. They've already announced that. And I think that when you get to season 2, between season 2 and season 3, when they announce the casting for because in book 3 is when Sirius, Lupin, Wormtail, like that whole story kind of like begins. I think they're going to announce those people, and then they're going to announce that they're going to do a Marauders series as well. And it's going to run at the same time as the Harry Potter series. So it'll be like, kind of like with the Arrowverse, you had like you had Arrow, and then it kind of backdoored Flash, and then that kind of backdoored not Guardians of the Galaxy. What is the
it was it was
Legends of Tomorrow.
Legends of
Tomorrow. And it just kind of like branched and branched and branched and branched. I think that's what they're going to do with Harry Potter. I think that they're going to do the season. They're going to see how it goes with season 1 and season 2. It'll go well because it's Harry Potter. People can say what they want about J.K. Rowling.
I'm excited.
I don't disagree with them.
Excited.
A lot of people have said that it's too soon to do a reboot of this. It would be better to do a creative endeavor. But for those people who say that, look what happened with Fantastic Beasts. I'm not saying that it was bad. I think Fantastic Beasts could have been fantastic. But the writing was bad, and it didn't get the reception it wanted, and it got canceled. It was supposed to be 5 movies. It was supposed to be a 5-movie series, and they killed it after 3 because it kept declining so heavily because the writing was horrible. I could do an entire solo episode of this podcast talking about how bad the Fantastic Beasts franchise was and how much potential it had to be good, but then they just kept making mistakes over and over again.
Look, HBO Max, wherever you want to be called now. All you have to do is scan each book in a computer,
and do exactly
print that bitch, and then
that's your script.
Hand people their copies, and there's your script. Just do that.
It's great. You can buy a copy of the script of this book at any bookstore. Just do that. So I think that around season 2, season 3, either they'll announce season 3 and then they'll announce the Marauders thing after the 3rd season, depending on how well it does. But I think they're going to just be like, great news. Not only are we announcing these people were cast for the Harry Potter show, but we're also doing a Marauder series, and that's going to spin off into its own thing. And then that'll spin off into like a Voldemort, because a lot of people have said the other one that they would like to see is like, in the books, Voldemort just goes missing for a while. So like when he leaves Hogwarts, there's like traces of what happens to him. It's like he pops up here and then, sorry, I keep hitting my mic. He pops up here and then 5 years later he pops up here and then 2 years later he pops up here. I think that they will do a Tom Riddle series as well, but that'll happen once we get to, I think what'll happen is, Okay, so technically, a young Tom Riddle, like a high school level Tom Riddle, appears in season 2. So it could also be that they announce the Marauder series later and then do a young Voldemort series. But I think what's more likely is that they will do the Marauders announcement first, and then when they get into years 6 and 7, which is when you start to get that Tom Riddle backstory, is when they'll announce a young Tom Riddle. And then if those go well, then afterwards they'll either do a post Harry Potter series where it'll be like Harry Potter, the college years, or they'll do a Founders series.
College years. Yeah.
But I think that's going to be their major competing franchise for. It's like, okay, you have Marvel, we have DC. You have Star Wars, we have Harry Potter.
Yeah. To what people, I get the understanding of. You don't want to, like, the movies are good. Movies are, I like them. At least they're good to me. To some people, they're great. And people don't want to ruin it. They don't want to ruin such a thing, which I understand. But it doesn't follow the books or doesn't answer things in the books like that they should. So
yeah, there's a lot of like, we cut this because it's Harry Potter. You've read it.
Yeah,
and that's lame.
So they need to like and. If they throw it into a series where like each episode like tells the story through and through, it's gonna make it even more lovable, man. Yeah. It's just gonna. I mean, you can have that character development.
What I like to call the bitching phase, and again, there's controversy around J.K. Rowling because of her stance on things. We're not even going to get into that here. That if that's why you don't want to support this series, then I support you not supporting the series. One of the things that we're gonna go into our 30-year-old therapist selves here for a second. Take it from your older brothers here. One of the things I'm working on mentally is that things can coexist at the same time. They are not mutually exclusive. You can disagree with somebody's opinion and appreciate their art at the same time. And if you don't want to financially support that art, or you don't want to watch that art because it contributes, then cool. That's totally cool for you. But I don't like to shame people for that. I don't. If you think that Chris Brown is a horrible person because he is a accused and convicted woman beater, then but you love his music, then go listen to his music. I don't listen to his music because I don't want to support that. Sometimes you just kind of have to pick your battles in this capitalist hellscape that we live in.
Yeah. And so it was funny that you're talking about how the battles right between Disney and like HBO, Paramount merge or whatever they're going to do.
Right.
The whole universes. So you know how it's always been wondered why they've never really made a Batman show, other than like the Adam West show.
I know this. I found this out.
Did
I send you this TikTok?
No. I found this out on TikTok as well. You didn't send it to me, but I found it out that like, so DC sold the rights of Batman for the Adam West show.
They in perpetuity
for in perpetuity forever. So they couldn't really make a Batman show because of the Adam West show, which then the rights were sold to Fox, and then Fox bought Disney bought Fox.
So Disney owns the right.
So Disney technically owns the right to Batman. I'm like, what?
Disney owns the right to a Batman show. So that's why we never got it in the Arrowverse, and that's why Oliver Queen kind of became the de facto Bruce Wayne. Because it was like, he's a billionaire with no superpowers who goes out and has a weird rogues gallery. Like, that's close enough. Which is funny because Green Arrow is always supposed to be like kind of a sarcastic, funny character. Not all the time, but he was supposed to be like predominantly a comedy, sarcasm-based character who was like the fun offset to Batman. And then they couldn't do Batman, and they were like, well, how much do we really need like a sarcastic, funny character as much as we need like a Bruce Wayne to tie everybody together?
Yeah. Which is funny, though, even in the animation, though, like, because their backstories are somewhat similar to a point. I mean, they're both, okay, maybe similar so that they're rich. They come from rich families. But it's funny, though, that Green Arrow and Batman are, like, really good friends. Like,
are they?
They have a they're really close connection.
Oh, I didn't know that. What's interesting about that is the only thing I know about, well, not the only thing. One of the things that I know, and I don't know as much about non-Arrowverse Green Arrow, is that Batman has said that he has a plan for every member of the Justice League if they were ever to ever turn evil or turn against the League for some reason, except Green Arrow. He's the only one he's like, oh, if you turn evil, I don't have to worry about that. Which is so messed up.
Well, what's crazy though is like, because like there's been a ton of like animated movies where like Batman and Green Arrow kind of like they talk a lot and they like do things together. So like something happened with like the Justice League and Batman's like, yeah, I'm out. I'm not doing this no more. And then Green Arrow's like, yeah, me neither. I'm done. And they both leave together. And then like comes to find out like Black Canary and like Wonder Woman are like, you guys planned this together, didn't you? And like and Batman's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he just like, dips out. They're like, they're so, since they're kind of both like the humans of the Justice League, like they're humans but with good skills, that they're on the same wavelength together. Like that's why I think they connect to each other pretty well.
Yeah,
like, I mean
they're both
hey man,
billionaires with no superpowers.
My bones hurt too. My bones hurt too. Don't yours,
bro? I gotta tell you, I pulled a quad last week, and I don't know if I can keep doing this.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just funny, man, how they have it all tied together.
How's Robin? Good. How's Speedy? Good.
Yeah. He's being a little shit right now.
He's being a little shit. Yeah, it's really interesting that they, and like at this point, like just buy the rights back. Like I don't know how much it would cost, but like it feels worth it.
I feel like Disney would be a dick though. I really do. Disney's like, oh, you want your main character show back? Oh, okay.
So you want Batman? You know, your highest grossing franchise? Sure, we'll sell it back to you. $5 billion.
Yeah, it's like that bully that like holds your like lunch up. Oh, is this your lunch? Is this what you want? And DC's like the little kid's like, yes,
did your mom pack your favorite today?
Yeah.
Ooh, sounds like there's a pudding cup in there.
Yes, it's my favorite pudding cup. Please give it to me.
It's chocolate. I love chocolate.
Yeah. But overall, I'm really excited for. There's a lot of good content that's going to come out. I just don't know if I can wait, man. I just want it to happen now.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I already have heard. You know, it's the internet, and in my time as an adult, in my wise old years, this is what I've learned about the internet that I can pass on to our young viewers. People are going to bitch about everything all the time. It is best to just not listen to them bitch all the time about everything, because eventually that project will come out, and those same people will love it, and will not shut the fuck up about how great it is, despite the fact that they spent the last 3 years bitching.
Yeah, so, exactly.
No, but for real, people, like, again, all I'm hearing right now about the Harry Potter stuff is that people don't want to support it because of Joe Rowling. People don't want to support it because it's too new. People don't want to support it because Daniel Radcliffe is still in the prime of his career. Why would you not? And all of those things are going to disappear. I mean, not all of them. I think especially some of the cultural issues will not disappear. But when the show comes out and it settles in, people will just stop imaginarily bitching about it, because it's really easy to complain about something when you haven't experienced it yet. It's really easy to say that series isn't going to be good, or I don't want to support that series, or it's too soon, or do we really need to do this again? And then it comes out and it's great. It's kind of like House of the Dragon. People were like, me included, were like, Game of Thrones ended on a really crappy ending. I'm not interested in this product. And then it just kind of kept going, and people were like, wow, this is really good on its own. And then it just kind of like silences people because those people, and again, I'm not talking about the people who are standing up for human rights and stuff like that. I'm talking about people who are just complaining because they want to complain. People who are saying it's too soon, it's too new, it's too early, it's too redone, it's too repetitive. All of those people are going to say that about Harry Potter, or they're going to say it about House of the Dragon, or they're going to say it about whatever. And then when that show comes out and another announcement is made, those people are going to move on to the next thing to complain about. So just don't listen.
I mean, it happened with Mario. It happened with the Batman.
It happens with everything. And the longer they push that announcement out, if that announcement is 5 years in the making, people are going to complain for 5 years about it. And it sucks because, like, while I think that there are certainly criticisms are necessary. I think that it's important to keep your guard up so that they don't just keep remaking the same garbage over and over, but they learn their lesson and they're like, okay, instead of doing a 2-hour Harry Potter movie, let's do a 9-hour of 9 1-hour episodes series so that we can really get into the characters. Fun fact about Harry Potter, in the first movie, Harry did not cast a single spell. He just didn't use magic in the first movie.
Oh, you're right.
He flies on a broom. I think there might be like one where he's around them as they're learning. Like,
didn't. Yeah, no, he didn't. They were learning Wingardium Leviosa.
They were learning.
He never
it.
did it. He didn't.
Fun fact. Okay, this is just a nerd. You just tripped over one of my nerd things. You know how everyone's always like, "Oh, it's Wingardium Leviosa, not Wingardium Leviosa." It's because in the books, Ron has like a Cockney-ish accent, so he's like Wingardium Leviosa with an R at the end. And she's like, it's not Wingardium Leviosa, it's Wingardium Leviosa. But because Rupert Grint, the actor, would just say Wingardium Leviosa, she was like, it's not Leviosa, it's Leviosa. Because in the books, it's Wingardium Leviosa. And she's like, that's wrong. You're putting an R there and it's going to backfire. So it's just funny to me because everyone's always like, oh, she's so nitpicky. And I was like, no, she's right. They just didn't portray it properly.
But also, hopefully they can do it in the show. Most spells they can rebound, right, and like have an effect that way too. If you don't,
there's like there's kind of holes in the Harry Potter lore. I'll say that like it's like you have to say things properly and you have to use your wand movement properly. But then it's like, but also sometimes people just like say it in their head, and I'm like, well, what happens if somebody's got like a stutter? Are they just disqualified from being a wizard at that point? Or
yeah. I'm sorry, little Timmy. You have a weird stutter. You'll never be a wizard.
Also, why it's so funny to me in Hogwarts Legacy, there's the character who came over from I forget where. It was a foreign. It's like the biggest wizarding school. Do you remember the one I'm talking about? She's the one who like goes after the. She's the Gryffindor girl who goes after the like bad guys. But anyway, she's like, yeah, I came from a different wizarding school that doesn't use wands, and he was like, oh, surely that magic must be weaker, and she was like, no. We just think you're like really posh with your wands. And I'm like, the whole point of in this story, the whole point of wand lore is that like wands make you stronger. That's why people like goblins and magical creatures want wands, is because they channel your magic. Shouldn't it make more sense? And they're like, no. And I'm like, so the whole wand movement thing, what do you do when you're just like bare handing it? When you're like, you're like Wingardium Leviosa, and do you like move your hand in the motion, or like it's not explained at any point? So I hope that it does. I hope that they cover it somehow in the Harry Potter series.
Yeah. Well, I think we can end it there, man.
Yeah, that sounds good. You have an announcement to make.
I do have an announcement. So this is for all the current listeners and followers of the show. I don't want you all to be surprised, but the show is going through an overall rebrand. Yes, overall rebrand. So I've gotten feedback from a few of the followers and few of listeners stating how hard it is to find the show, and I'm trying to make it easier and content easier for people to listen to and overall find. So this episode is going to come out on. As every episode comes out on Tuesdays, so that is not changing. Every episode is still going to come out on Tuesdays, but the overall rebrand is going to have a different name, different logo. Shane, editing magic. You'll show it on the screen right here, and it's going to be called The Nerdy Mind. It's overall it's just a universal name. It's the Nerdy Mind. It's easier for people to find. That way people can look it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify, or even YouTube. It will come up right away. And overall, just building this platform that trying to build and have some connections with some guests that are going to be coming on. So I have high hopes for this channel and what it's going to become. So look forward to that. So just know that this episode is going to be on the old platform of Roll for Nerdy Check. But don't worry, with the Nerdy Mind, there's nothing you have to do. You don't have to resubscribe. You don't have to find it again. It's just going to overall just develop into itself. So you don't have to do anything. Just note when the episodes come out, don't look for Roll for Nerdy Check. Just look for the Nerdy Mind, and you'll see it. And I'll even show it in the video version of what you will be looking for. So just look out for that. And like I said, look for, if you want to listen to the audio versions, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many others. YouTube channel, we have the video versions. Just like, comment, and subscribe, and give us support. Leave comments of what you want us to talk about, things that you want us to, watch or see or read or whatever.
And
anything nerdy.
If you go and you listen to anything, if you have opinions on the Harry Potter series, drop in the comments.
Yeah.
If you go back and you watch Palm Springs on Hulu,
Yeah.
put it in the comments. Let us know what you think, because that is one of those movies that flew under a lot of people's radars. So I want to hear what you have to think about them. And if you like them, do us a favor. Yeah, you could promote the podcast. That'd be cool. But share what we're talking about. If you like the movie, go show it to somebody. That's what this thing is about spreading the nerdy word, whether that's movies or whether that's games or whatever it is. We're about increasing our community and pushing good stuff out there.
Exactly. And as always, stay nerdy, my friends.
Yeah. Oh, and for the last time, may all your nerdy checks roll high.
Yes.